up, you guys, and welcome to Adulting with Joyce Pring, the how-tos of your 20s told by a 20-something-year-old traversing through adult life expectantly and with gusto. Don't forget to check out joycepring.com for the show notes and use the hashtag Adulting with Joyce Pring for all your comments, suggestions, and hopefully non-violent reactions. Okay, welcome back to Adulting with Joyce Pring. Today we've got a very special guest. I recently guested on his podcast called Kendrick Loves to Brand. If you love that episode, well, I did too. So now we have him here on Adulting. Welcome, Kendrick Co.
Thank you, Joyce. Thank you for having me.
I'm so excited. You know, I had so much fun when I guested on your podcast because one, it was so nice because you didn't have any notes. You were just spitting the questions tuloy-tuloy. And two, because it's nice to be with a fellow podcaster.
Oh, nice. Thank you.
Yeah.
It took a lot of preparation to get to that point.
So Kendrick, you are, apart from being a podcaster, of course, you started Antidote Branding at 23 years old.
Yes.
And you were telling me about that. I don't know if you were telling me about that or I heard it from your podcast that you started at 23. You basically had no idea what you were doing as any 23-year-old starting their business, right? So take us back to that.
Okay, so back then, I graduated 2006 with a master's in marketing communications from UANP. And then I went to work for advertising for about less than 2 years, actually. Even back then, I've always knew that I wanted to get into branding. It's just that branding as a field, as an industry, it wasn't what it is now, where there's a lot of really nice branding firms now. Back then, there were only maybe a handful, and I didn't have any background in it, so I just couldn't find work in branding the way that I sort of envisioned the type of branding that I want to do. I couldn't find jobs after I left the advertising agency, so it just came to a point where I've been unemployed for so long. Maybe it's time to maybe I should start my own company. And I just kept putting it off, the usual thinking. I don't have experience. I wouldn't know what to do. How do I get clients? Like, who would trust, a 23-year-old, for their branding? And then, it just got to the point where I just couldn't not do anything anymore. So I just took the plunge and, went for it. So I started the company June 2008. And then it took me a while actually to start getting clients. Kasi what's branding? Is it like marketing? Is it like advertising? Are you here to make an ad for us? And then I'll be like, no, I'm actually here to fix your brand, or if you want to create something new. So it took a while to actually get the first client. If I remember correctly, 4 months.
Wow.
I was literally knocking on doors, sending out emails. I was... I'm sure you guys are not familiar with Yellow Pages anymore, but I was going through that, just trying to choose ano bang companies dito that look like they need branding help. And that's sort of how things got started.
Ang galing. I was listening to another episode of Marie Forleo recently. She had a caller who asked that, and she said, I want to start being an entrepreneur, a businesswoman, but I don't know where to start. So how did you figure out that was what you're supposed to be doing, like knocking on doors and asking people if they needed help?
Actually, I've really been interested in entrepreneurship for the longest time. So, you read about it in Entrepreneur Magazine and mga websites and blogs, and then it just got when you start, we tend to think. And back then, there's no social media, so it's not like you can just boost a post and hopefully somebody will see you. You actually have to go out there and. I didn't even have a website. I just had calling cards printed. I didn't have a physical office. So I just had to, think, where are my prospects? So I just really, started looking around, started emailing people. In terms of how I thought about it, it's out of necessity. Because if I don't go out there, nobody's gonna find me. It's not like people are, like it's not like there's this big demand of for branding that people are just gonna look for somebody who's raising their hand saying, hey, I'm doing branding, come here. So I really just had to go out there and parang out of necessity lang talaga.
I feel like though that's changed over the past few
Correct.
years, right? Like branding has really changed, and especially now with the rise of influencers and mga personal branding,
Correct.
diba? May mga ganun na. I remember before I was asked to speak at the university for personal branding. That's so odd for me. How has the whole landscape changed since you started at 23 to now that antidote branding is thriving?
Okay, personal branding, I think the biggest change has been it's become more accepted to talk about it. Diba? Even personally, if you have a personal brand, it's more acceptable now to say, oh, I'm building my personal brand. Because back then, if you start saying that, people are gonna look at you like, sino tong feeling na tong personal brand, diba?
Kailangan ng personal
Diba?
brand.
Like only the real personal brands are the personal brands, parang ganun. So I think now it's more accepted because you have the rise of YouTube, you have bloggers, you have influencers,
TikTok.
bloggers, TikToks, Instagram. So parang ngayon, if you have like a voice or a talent na you can share to people, if you have an expertise in any subject matter and you can you can teach people that, you can actually start a personal brand, diba? And personal brand is really, it's just, if you boil it down, it's just really your reputation, diba? As compared to a product where it's a lot more complicated. As a person, your personal brand is really your reputation. So if you're known as a host or a presenter or a speaker, then it's really just a matter of having people find you if they have a need for that, diba? And then they'll see you online, and then parang doon na nagsa-start you get to build your personal brand, quote unquote, diba?
How important do you think branding is nowadays? Now that people are understanding it more, and now that people are accepting of it more.
Definitely. Branding is like, sure, I'm super biased because I really, really love branding. But for me, branding is the most important aspect of a business, more than marketing. Even before you think about your marketing or your advertising, the way we used to tell our clients, guys, if you do your branding right, you don't even need to spend on marketing or advertising, especially at the start. You'll do a lot of PR, but it'll be easier because you have a story to tell. Diba? Most of the time kasi before, or at least like even in some cases now, like when people start a business or they'll create a brand, they have a brand name, but they didn't really go through the process of really crafting that brand properly. So what happens is when you launch the brand, what's the brand about? It's just, parang it's similar to this other brand. And then that's when you have to go to an advertising agency and ask them, can you figure out something how to differentiate my brand? And that's parang you can go through that process even before you launch the brand, so that you don't even need to spend too much on that. Diba? So when you ask how important is branding, it's really the most important because like even how we approach it as a country. I think that one of the things that as a country we need to get better at is in developing our brands. Parang magaling kasi tayo manggaya. Diba? We have a lot of puns, diba? Mga stores na puns and mga ganyan, or we like, parang the tendency here is, it's easy kasi, it's parang low-hanging fruit, diba? To say, oh, we're the Philippine version of this brand. Which I think
is that a bad thing or a good thing, you think, personally?
I think it's a bad thing because it limits the potential of the brand.
That's true, that you'll always be the Philippine version of the other brand.
Which is, nandito ka lang sa Philippines, diba? And I feel like for our country to have, better progress in terms of, economy, we need to have more brands that are here, that are started here, but can go global. So if you look at countries like Japan or South Korea, diba, parang yung laging sinasabi when we were in school na they were so behind economically because of the war, and Korea when they had their civil war. But if you look at both countries now, they're like sobrang layo in terms of their economies, diba? And one of the reasons I'm not an economist, a disclaimer, but I just look at it from the perspective of a brand guy. They have all these global brands. Na the market is not just mga brands in Japan. They're not just catering to Japanese people.
Yeah, that's true.
They're catering to everyone in the world, diba? Whether it's entertainment, technology, their cars, diba? Everyone drives a Toyota or a Honda or diba? And same thing with Korea with technology, diba? Whether it's like home appliances, cell phones, even their telenovelas, diba? I'm sure
their music, their food, their culture, everything.
Diba?
Yeah.
Fashion. So if you think about it that way, the things that they produce in locally are being consumed globally. So their market is much, much bigger.
Yeah.
And since it's being made there in their country, their economy is improving. There's a lot more employment and more meaningful employment because there's a bigger value to selling a brand versus selling a raw material.
That's true.
Which is, I think, historically, that's one of the weaknesses that we've had here locally. We have a lot of natural resources. But we just sell the actual natural resource.
Yeah, we don't make brands out of it.
We don't process it and brand it, diba? Like, parang you can name. I mean, if you look at all our natural resources, all our products, you can pretty much look at it and see that they're in the top exports ng country. But we don't have brands that are matching to each of those. So, it's good nga now because we have like, let's say for chocolates. We have Oro, we have Malagos, we have a lot of local brands like Reese's Chocolate, Tio and Philo. We have a lot of local brands now that are popping up that are promoting Filipino chocolate brands.
Yeah.
Hindi lang yung raw materials na cacao, which has been historically yung what we export. We export the cacao to companies in Switzerland or wherever.
Yeah.
They'll process it, brand it, sell it back to us.
Yeah.
Diba?
I have a question, and I'm not complaining. I'm just curious. Why is it that usually when I find these Filipino brands, they're even more expensive than the foreign brands? Is it because super mass-produced na yung mga brands?
Yes, I think that's the biggest factor. And that's also, like, di ba nga, parang nagiging issue ng ibang tao minsan, pag local, bakit ang mahal?
Oo, laging
Right?
ganun. Like, for example, when you were saying that we didn't used to create products out of what we were exporting, right? And recently, I've fallen in love with these fruit chips. And they're branded so well. The packaging is so nice, and it's mangoes. Alam mo yung mga durian, lahat ng mga fruits from the Philippines. It's dried fruits, but it's so expensive a pop, like 195 pesos for a small bag, right? So why is it usually like that, you think?
I think that will come into play, the economies of scale, really, because again, we're starting with a small market here. So once those brands get to export and lumalaki yung production capacity nila, then the pricing will follow. It's just that's why it's hard. For me, it's hard for mga independent Filipino brands to start and really get to that point where it can really scale big.
Yeah.
Kasi parang lagi for us, ang mahal. Kasi we're comparing it to imported brands that have like massive scale. So we can't compare the pricing, diba?
Yeah.
But if we don't support naman the local brands who are really trying to do it right, then they'll never get to that point faster to be able to benefit more people.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Because we also get that there for one of the first brands that we created in-house. So just to give a quick background, so Antidote, we started as an agency, basically a branding agency. We were creating brands for other clients, and then about 4 years in, we realized that the clients that we were working with weren't fully aligned with our vision, which is to create Filipino brands to go global.
And I love your tagline. It's brand for the motherland.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's why is it that?
So going back to what I was saying kanina, I really feel like if we can create more Filipino brands that can go global, we can showcase our creativity, and then the employment that we can create here. It's not just employment for processing of raw materials, but it's actually the finished product, which means the big value of the brand, of what people are paying for, is here in the Philippines. It goes to a company here, then they can distribute that to their employees here better than if you're just selling raw materials. Kaya nga yung mga sad stories you hear about farmers who can't even feed their own families.
Yeah.
Diba? Kasi nga, they're just selling the raw materials in terms of the value chain, diba? So, so, as I was saying, one of the first brands that we created in-house after we decided to stop working with clients, we sort of tested it as parang siyang case study for our clients to say na, look, if we can create a brand that's different, that's first in the world, we can, even if it's sobrang niche na item. So we thought of the most niche item you can think of na related to the Philippines. So beach blanket.
Lagu.
So Lagu. So Lagu is the
Yeah.
first, we call it the world's first sand repellent beach blanket.
Which I love, by the way. Sorry to interrupt you,
Yeah.
but I really love Lagu. I got it. I think I bought it or somebody gave it to me as a gift because I love traveling. And it's literally the first ever beach blanket I've ever had wherein I didn't need to worry about getting sand into my bag because it was so sand repellent.
Yep.
And it was included in the parang brown little packet that was
Yep.
part of the
Correct.
blanket, right? And then it had that it had a really nice design. It was simple, and I thought to myself, it's so nice that it said that it was sand repellent, and it actually was sand repellent. Yeah.
Correct. So with
congrats
that,
on that. That's
thank you
awesome.
so much. So actually, yun nga, with Lagu, we thought, okay, what's a product that people can associate with the Philippines? So we have a lot of beautiful beaches here, probably the best beaches in the world, diba? And we came up with Lagu as an idea na, to help Boracay, which at that time had issues with sand erosion. So we came up with that idea to show our potential clients na, look, we'll take a super niche item like a beach blanket,
Yeah.
brand it, and then we can take this to other countries. And it actually worked so well nung first few months that we actually decided not to present it to clients anymore. Let's just not work with clients. Let's just pursue this as we'll create our own brands and sell it.
Yeah.
And when I say it works so well, we actually didn't even sell a lot. Okay, a funny story is when we launched this in a bazaar in NBC tent. So 3 days in, we sold a whopping 19 pieces. As in yun lang, 19. Pero we were so happy, as in like the whole team was like, we were all so tired. It was our first time to do like a bazaar. So parang everyone was just pitching in and but we were so happy selling 19 pieces because for us, it's not so much the amount of the units that we sold. It's more of the feedback that we got.
Yes.
There were a lot of foreigners kasi sa Fort to sa BGC. So there are a lot of foreigners who came and said, "Oh wow, we need this in our country." Like, where are you guys? Are you available in other countries? May mga ganong tanong na agad. So parang we're like, okay, we only
Pwede
sold
pala.
19. Pero I think there's something in this, diba?
Yeah.
Parang baka tama nga yung sinasabi. Parang it's sort of a validation to what we were thinking. And if we can create something that's really totally new, that even people from other countries haven't seen, but they'll understand the need for it. So when we said, it's sand repellent, parang we didn't even have to explain it. Everyone just got it. Like there was one of our Spanish friends saw it, and then he was just there to support. Hindi kanya alam ano yung bebenta namin. But when he saw it, he was like, "Oh wow, I didn't know this is what you were gonna make." Sabi niya, I work in Mexico for such a long time before, and this was a problem in Cancun before.
Yeah.
Na similar problem to Boracay. And it's so popular. A lot of people were there, and people were using towels to lie down on the beach. So with Lagu, compared to a towel, yung towel kahit na anong pagpag mo dun, the sand will
Nandun
not
pa rin,
fall off,
yeah.
diba? So, this is so perfect, ganyan. So he started connecting us to stores in Singapore, to Spain. Tas yun, parang after that first year, we just didn't look back na. We stopped working with clients and we pursued that na.
But you still do branding, of course, for other clients, right?
Right now, we actually started opening up our services again because over the years, we've gotten a lot of inquiries. So parang we felt na with the team, our team is growing din naman now, so the capacity is there to take on projects. And at least now, we feel like parang we can be more selective also with the people we work with kung aligned with our vision. Kasi before, if we were just reliant on working with clients, ang daming compromises kasi syempre parang if the clients say, no, this is really just what I want, make me a cheaper version of this.
Yeah.
Or just copy this brand, change the color a bit, I'll make it cheaper. Parang ganun. So parang we can't keep saying no to those clients naman, even if actually we said no a lot of times. So parang it got to a point na the business will not be sustainable if we just keep saying no. So kaya kami nag-shift to let's create our own brands, and then maybe now we have the portfolio at least enough to say look, this is how we're doing things.
Yeah.
If you believe in this, if you want to create something that's new, that's different, that's first in the world, then we'll be the perfect partner for you.
That's so good. When you're telling me that story, it's also a lot like branding in the sense that you have to say, because when you work with brands, it's called brand association, right? So if Kendrick works with Joyce, we're now associated as a brand. So if you say yes to Kendrick's brand or to my brand and you don't believe in the brand that I have, all of a sudden it will be tainted. Your brand will be tainted with the things that I believe in, which you don't. So I think that's one of the points that I would always tell people when it comes to personal branding. The reason why you have to be honest about the products that you endorse and the brands that you work with is not only because you owe it to people to be honest, but also for your personal branding. You don't want to go 20 years down the line and say na, yeah, I hated that brand, but I just wanted to make money. Because at the end of the day, it's not just money that you're making, it's a legacy, diba? It's your brand essence, it's what you'll be leaving to your children. And that's going back to your point na branding is really so important. Yeah, so that's what antidote branding does, and it's nice to hear you transition, because you were saying kanina that you were an employee and then you didn't have work, and so out of necessity you had to start antidote to start branding for clients, and then all of a sudden you had the products that you were making by yourself, and it's not just Lagu that you're doing, right? What are the other products that you have
other
under
brands?
Antidote?
Okay, so after Lagu, we also launched Early Bird Breakfast Club. So that's one of the first all-day breakfast restaurants, chains.
I ate there.
Nice.
In Eastwood.
In Eastwood.
Yeah.
Yes. Unfortunately, we had to close Eastwood. Pero yun, so Early Bird Breakfast Club. And then we also have a sports recovery spray called A-Game. So if you're into sports, if you love working out or running, we develop a line of magnesium sprays to help people recover better. So let's say for A-Game, let's say it's the same kind of thinking. We were Filipinos love sports, but we don't have a Filipino sports brand.
That's true.
That has gotten to other countries, diba? We have a few local brands before, pero mostly they're just catering to the local market, diba? And usually parang it's a cheaper version of Nike, cheaper version of this, or cheaper version of Gatorade. But we wanted to come up with something that's totally new, totally different, that can be appreciated by athletes here and athletes all over the world. So that's what A-Game is all about. There's magnesium oils in other countries, but with A-Game, what we did was develop a product that's better at being absorbed by the skin. So with magnesium oil, I mean, if people are familiar with magnesium oil, sorry, I'm gonna geek out on you guys on magnesium. Pero okay, so with magnesium oils, it's super effective. Magnesium is super important for people in general, for our health, diba? But for athletes, all the more because it helps with flushing out lactic acid, helping your muscles perform, contract, and all that stuff. So when you take magnesium supplements orally, there's only a limit to what your body can process. The rest of it, you'll just
out.
But on the skin, there's a higher tolerance. It's just that with the old school traditional magnesium oils, if you spray it on your skin, there's only so much your skin can absorb. The rest will stay on top of your skin, so it starts to get itchy. So very uncomfortable siya na feeling. It's effective. So if you have like mga tendinitis or mga inflammations and all that, it will really work overnight, but ang kate, the whole night you're scratching like crazy. So we took that idea of how do you get magnesium, more effectively absorbed. So doon kami nag-work. We formulated two products. One is ethyl alcohol base, and the other one is coconut oil base. So it's easier for the skin to absorb the magnesium, even if you don't have a higher concentration of magnesium. So that's for A-Game. And then we also have Spud Buds. Spud Buds naman is homegrown and handcrafted potato snacks using Filipino potato variants. So a lot of people are not familiar with the fact that we actually have Filipino potato variants, like mga igorota and all that. And this is something my brother wanted to start ever since. He loves potatoes, as in like mukha na siyang but he loves potato snacks. So when he wanted to start a business after he was working for a bank, Parang that was just the most logical thing. So when we were talking about it, na parang syempre yung thinking is, how do you create your own potato chips? Na parang we're not a big company, we don't have like a manufacturing plant, diba? But we really look at that na most of the potato chip brands, even the local brands, they're using imported American potatoes, yung variants. Some of it are grown here, but mostly imported. So we wanted to have a different angle while also promoting Filipino, produce basically. So my brother and his partner went to Benguet. They talked to the farmers there, and that's where they sourced their potatoes.
Wow.
So yung Spud Buds, it's available in SM Snack Exchange. Nag-plug na no joke.
Okay lang.
And mga cinemas. So yun, really the advocacy is really to promote Filipino potato variants. Para to support na rin the farmers. Siyempre, it's still a small brand. So the impact that we're making, sobrang liit lang nung part nung farm that we're sourcing from. Sobrang liit lang nung part ng farm niya yung they're planting potatoes for the brand, but the rest of the farm syempre ginagamit pa rin for like bigger produce or ibang variants ng potatoes pa rin for the local companies that are producing potato chips. So that's Spud Buds. And then what else? And then my wife also has a couple of brands under Antidote. First is Bob and Weave. So when my wife gave birth to our son 4 years ago, she wanted to have breastfeeding clothes that are still stylish, makes her feel like herself pa rin, basically. So dun nakuha yung idea of starting her own line of breastfeeding clothes. First, actually, she was just parang nagpapagawa na siya ng damit for herself. Then her friends started asking her like, oh, bentahan mo naman ako yan. Saan mo ba nabili yan? Bentahan mo na lang ako. Parang gano'n. So, sabi niya, parang pwede ko bang gawing business to? Sige na nga, parang, I'll create something, diba? So yun, doon na nag-start yung brand. So the brand's almost over 2 years old now, doing well also, mostly online. So it's called Bob and Weave. And then the other one that she started, my wife also published a series of children's books.
Oh, wow.
Called Tales of Tom Tom. So like we love reading, we love books, and we love traveling. And ever since my wife was pregnant pa lang at that time, she was already buying books, hoarding books talaga for our son. So yung frustration namin back then was we wanted to buy local books also. But parang somehow, like when yung mga local books that we'll buy, when we show it to our nieces and nephews pa lang back then, parang they don't, and this might be unfair to generalize, pero parang it doesn't resonate as much with the kids. I don't know if it's the artwork, if it's the production quality.
Or is it super Filipino?
Or super Filipino, yes,
Tagalog,
maybe. So all of those combination, parang they tend to gravitate more to the imported books.
Yeah.
So we felt maybe there's something here that's maybe there's a formula here that's missing, diba? Whether it's the production quality, kasi like there's a lot of nice board books for kids na imported, but wala masyadong board books for na local. So if it's just paper lang, tendency syempre pag bata napupunit, so parang they feel like okay, baka this is not good quality or something. So my wife took that and the love of travel and thought maybe she would write children's books about Filipino places. So she started with Manila. We have a book about Bohol, Davao.
Wow.
So yung story is basically si Tom Tom is Filipino kid with cousins from other countries, and they would come visit, and parang siya yung travel guide.
Cute.
Sort of showing them, this is Jose Rizal, this is this is Luneta, this is ganyan. So yun, we 3 books pa lang, it's available in all the fully booked stores, and so far nakakatuwa kasi we're getting a lot of, like my wife would get all these photos from mga readers saying na we're here in Luneta right now. Kasi the kid insisted on going and seeing it in actual. So nakakatuwa kasi parang kahit na maliit pa lang yung books, konti pa lang, pero parang nakakatuwa lang to just see that type of impact, diba? Na kahit even if it's a few hundred kids na at least will develop that early love for the country. Diba? Kasi surprisingly nga, like a lot of yung mga moms would buy, they'll say, you know what, I never really thought about bringing my kids around. Na parang siya, alam niya yung Luneta, obviously, they went to school. Pero like even our nephews and nieces, they'd never been.
Usually mall lang.
Diba? Mall lang, diba? Parang, saan tayo pupunta ngayon? Ang daming malls, ang daming pwedeng gawin, diba?
True.
So, parang they never thought. So, parang nakakatuwa lang to see that type of, parang impact na, okay, 'Di ba? Parang you can develop a love for the country in a different way, 'di ba?
Where do you think this kind of idea of being driven by your love for the country, branding for the motherland kind of thing, where do you think it all started for you? Because I feel like, you're very good at what you do. You're very good at branding. You're a good entrepreneur. But it seems as if everything that you do, it's always kind of directed because of this love that you have for the country, for the Philippines, for the betterment of the community. Where do you think it came from or it started?
That's a very good question. Wait, let me think about that. The joke. Siguro I'm a third generation Filipino Chinese. Siguro part of it is hearing stories about parang how my grandfather moved here, escaped from China through yung hardships ng time na yun. That was like sobrang tagal na, long time ago. So when he came here, and he was able to establish a life here. So hindi ko alam kung doon nag-start, and growing up, parang even if I know I'm Filipino Chinese, parang I never really identified too much with the country itself.
Yeah, because you grew up here.
I grew up here, parang so I always look at myself as a Filipino.
Yeah.
So parang and when you grow up and you see all these problems of the country, and you'll hear some people who are more cynical say, wala nang pag-asa yung Pilipinas. Parang ganyan na talaga. Or, when you have relatives from abroad, they will come and say, kaya nga kami nag-move na kasi it's better there. You should just move there. Ganyan. Like, we have
That's
relatives.
That's always the narrative,
diba? Parang yun
right?
yung narrative, diba?
Yeah.
Na people who have gone to other countries will always say, yeah, it's much better here. You should consider moving, diba? Wala nang pag-asa yung Philippines and all that. So, I don't know if it's just a little bit of parang stubbornness also na bakit walang pag-asa? Parang maybe there's something I can do. Diba? So parang I guess it also in a way correlates to what we did with Lagu, for example, na when we had that discussion with UP before, they were doing a study kasi in Boracay, and we were talking with some of the locals also in Boracay when we had that idea. For a sand repellent beach blanket. Parang the concern or the overall narrative is what's happening in Boracay is caused by global warming, overdevelopment. So parang they're like, what can you do? Diba? Parang we can't stop all these resorts being built and all the tourists coming in na nagkakalat and all that. Parang it's for the economy of the island. So, ganyan talaga. Wala tayong magagawa. Parang, I don't know, like, when I hear those words, kasi wala tayong magagawa, hindi ko alam kung parang matigas lang ulo ko na, hindi, feeling ko meron eh. Parang ganun. So with Lagu, parang we boil it down to, what can each person do to not be part of the problem and be part of the solution?
Yeah.
So, dun nag-start yung, okay, maybe we can't stop global warming on our own. We can't stop all these building permits being issued left and right. But tayo, as a tourist, when we're on the beach, kumakapit yung sand sa clothes natin, our bags, and everywhere.
Yeah.
So maybe we're also part of the problem. Diba?
Yeah.
And if we use a towel, then... So doon kami nag-start, okay, what if we boil it down to that? What can one person do to have an impact? Yeah. So siguro yun din yung... Kaya when I was, actually parang maaga nga yung parang quarter life crisis ko. Kasi when I left advertising, it was because I was doing well in advertising. I enjoyed naman the work. I was learning a lot from all my bosses there. But it's just that I felt something was missing in terms of the fulfillment. Na parang, what am I doing? I'm, advertising for a soap. Na parang, okay, it's a good soap, pero parang there's probably more that I can do.
Yeah.
So dun siguro nag-starting thinking na, okay, so what can I do kaya to help the country in my own way?
Yeah.
So actually I had one full year na I don't really talk about this too much, pero like I had 1 year and I was unemployed after leaving kasi parang I didn't know what to do, so I was doing soul searching. I was asking the question almost every day, who am I? Parang ganun.
Wow, ang lalim. Existential problem.
So my girlfriend at that time, who's my wife now, parang would laugh nga kasi parang, ano nang tanong yan? Parang nag-usap kami sa phone bigla ng, who am I? Parang ganun. So parang doon lang siguro, parang like, okay, what can I do? What can I do on my own? So it just boiled down to, what am I good at ba? What can I give to the country, or what skill do I have, or what passion do I have that can benefit? I can't sing. I'm not an athlete. I'm not a politician. I'm not, what can I do? So it went down to branding maybe. So then the one is actually, if you think about it, branding, the country needs more branding, needs better branding. If I can create a brand that can be, can be bigger, and employ more people and get to other countries, and then maybe that's my impact, to help the country.
And that's so inspiring, because any success related book that you read, or entrepreneur related book that you read, it will never talk about thinking about the profit first, or thinking about what you're gonna get off of the business that you're making. It's always about finding solutions for the problems that you see. And like what you said, you were looking for solutions for problems that you kept seeing around you, whether it was bad branding, whether it was hopelessness of other people for the country. You're trying to look for, okay, how can I help and solve these problems, right? And apart from that, you're also realistic in that you assessed yourself, what am I good at that I can actually offer these people? Because sometimes people say na, yun yung problema, sige, magiging artista na lang ako. Tapos wala pala yun sa strength nila, di ba? So it's nice because it's a balance of both that. And that's one of the questions that we'd always get here on the podcast. Like, if you're an employee and then you want to become an entrepreneur, or your very own business owner, right? What would you do? So what would be your advice to those people who are thinking about that?
I think the very first thing is to really know yourself, know what you're good at. Yung concept ng ikigai, di ba? Na, what you're good at, what can you make money from, what does the world need. So parang if you combine all of that, then I think that's where you can see the path that you should be on. I think where a lot of people get lost nowadays is maybe there's a lack of introspection and reflection, especially with social media nowadays. Parang you'll see somebody's doing this, somebody's doing that, somebody's being successful doing this. So parang, what if gawin ko yun, di ba? Parang, and I know that feeling kasi back then, even wala pang ganong social media, it's so easy to get pulled into different directions.
That's true.
When you don't know yet what you want to do. So I think the first step is to maybe shut off muna all the distractions. Really spend time with yourself and try to understand, di ba, yun nga, what makes you happy, what makes you fulfilled. Like, I can talk about branding 24 hours a day. Like, as in, and without even realizing it, even back then, I'm not a designer, I don't design, but I always buy design books. When I go to bookstores, I'll always go to that. I mean, I'll go to the business books, I'll go to the self-help books, I'll go to the sports area, and then I'll go to the design area. Like, I always want to buy those big design books. But I know I'm not a designer. So parang I feel like, why am I going here? Why am I spending all this time? Like, I'll sit in the bookstore and really just look at
the
logos, look at designs. And parang, and doon ko start na realize na maybe this is something that, I'm really passionate about. Kasi I can really spend hours and hours and hours, reading about it, learning about it. And then when I read about a business, I like to know about the people behind it, anong inisip nila, bakit nila ginawa to. So I think yun yung I think more the people who want to leave their current job to start because they want to start something. I think there's a seed to that, diba, na they want to start something. So it's about finding out what should you be doing, kasi nobody needs another copycat idea.
That's true.
So if you don't know yet who you are and what makes you happy, what makes you fulfilled, what your skills are, and how you can combine all of that to turn it into a business, then you need to spend more time reflecting and thinking.
Yeah, that's true. That's so important. Another question that we also got that they wanted to throw at you was, what was the first investment that you made as an entrepreneur, as a businessman, that has really helped you?
Okay.
That's a good question, right? But that's hard because you make a lot of investments before you start a business.
Actually, in terms of like equipments or anything, parang wala namang masyado. Like I had a laptop, I had calling cards made. And this is gonna sound cliche, pero parang I think the best investment I really made was in myself, in really learning, learning about branding, learning about business, Or actually, I'll give an example. So in our course, during the masteral year, you get assigned to a company. Okay, so I was assigned to IBM. But the work that I was doing is so different from what we were exposed to in school. So we thought in school, parang you're gonna make campaigns, parang you're gonna win awards, mga ganyan, di ba?
Tapos, you're gonna win awards ka agad,
grabe. Parang ganun yung expectation, di ba? When I got to IBM, the work that was assigned to us was making calls. As in, parang part kami ng business dev team, the sales team, and our job was to call pre-qualified clients and pass on the qualified clients to the sales team. So parang medyo call center type work siya. Not to look down on call center work, pero like I guess yung expectation mo if you're in college and you're learning marketing at ganito yung expectation mo na
different.
I made it to masteral year, parang you really killed yourself to pass and get to that level na you're taking your masters. Na everyone, all of our batchmates are intern ako ni ganitong ECD ng ganitong agency and I'm doing so well. And you're there every day making calls na binabagsakan ka ng phone, minumura ka minsan na parang
oh my gosh.
Kasi parang syempre nakaka-istorbo ka sa tao, di ba? So parang I guess yung it came to a point where I was thinking, do I just complain about this to the professors and say transfer me out of here, parang medyo feeling entitled na I don't deserve this, di ba? Parang I'm better than this, parang diba? Or do I take this opportunity to learn something from it? So, kami nung batchmate ko, parang we decided, you know what, let's just give this a really honest effort. And then, after maybe a few months, kasi 10 months yung internship naman, kung di talaga mag-work, then we can move on. Diba? So, yun, talagang day by day calls. Alam mo yung scene sa, like, one of my favorite movies, yung Pursuit of Happiness ni Will Smith.
Yes!
Super love
gosh.
that movie, diba? Yung scene where he was making calls and he was not, sabi hindi na siya nagsi-CR, as in, he was trying to get as many calls. Kasi that time, na-assign sa akin nung parang boss ko dun was a database na in his mind, parang like a few hundred contacts lang. But, nangyari kasi, he told the other department, just send it to my intern, whatever you have. Siya na bahala a total of 1,500 yung contacts na binigay sa akin.
Gosh.
But in his mind, 300.
Hundreds lang.
Ako naman, parang tangang intern. Hindi nagtanong, di ba? Hindi nagtanong, sir, tama ba to? Ito yung binigay nila lahat. Kasi parang was just, naka-assign sa akin, sabi niya, get it done in a month. I was like, so parang baka this is normal. So I was just like, after like the first mga 3 days, parang I was realizing, parang at this pace, I'm not gonna finish this.
Winil Smith mo na lang yung
so I was just really like calling every day, parang 30 successful calls. And I was super, super shy. And like, I don't like talking to strangers and like, sobrang like I would stutter and not be able to like complete coherent sentences. But it really trained me kasi parang if I can't talk to the person on the line, to keep them on the phone long enough to know ano ba yung server na gamit nyo, anong POS system gamit nyo, anong ganyan. If I don't, get through that, then kulang yung database.
Yeah.
But no, long story short, in a month, I was able to finish it. Nung pag-submit ko sa boss ko, doon na siya nagsabi na, ano tong list na to? Sabi ko, yun yung mga sinend nila, ganun. Sabi, but 300 lang dapat to Parang, bakit? So parang he was calling all those guys and saying, bakit yung pinasa lahat ng trabaho niyo to? Ganun. So parang, after 3 months in IBM, we were eventually transferred kasi parang na-realize ng professors, it's different nga from what they wanted in exposure. But at least I was able to finish that task. And later on, when I was starting Antidote na, it was easy for me to pick up the phone and call random strangers and companies and say, hey, I'm from Antidote. Kasi parang
there's 1,500
na training.
Yeah.
So, siguro yung investment that most people don't think is, kasi I think there's a tendency for us to say, okay, if I know what I'm doing right now is not my long-term plan, I'm not gonna give my best. I'm just gonna sort of go through the motions and bide my time until I can move on.
Yeah.
So, siguro parang if people want advice like that, parang yun yung masasabi ko na sometimes it doesn't make sense, but if you have to give your all to whatever you're doing right now because you don't know how it's going to help you down the line.
Yeah.
Ako, I never would have thought, like, yung first week namin dun, I was really just sobrang lost na parang, what am I doing here? Why am I calling? Pero after going through that process, and it was only after, kasi after that, I worked about less than 2 years pa. So mga parang at least 2 full years pa before I started Antidote.
Yeah.
Doon ko lang na-realize na if I didn't go through that, I wouldn't be able to get clients basically. Kasi I would be so shy. I'll be like dreading making calls. I'll be just be hiding behind emails all day.
That's
and
true.
people don't really respond to emails all the time. You need to follow up, call, get appointments and all that. So, siguro in terms of investment, wherever you are right now, learn as much as you can. Network, and also like if you do your job really really well naman now, down the line you never know the contacts that you have, at least you'll have that reputation. Your personal brand will be this is somebody we trust. So if you start a business, you start your own consulting firm or whatever it is, people will at least, you have that credibility kasi alam nilang okay tong person na to, di ba?
And I think that's really such an important lesson also that you learned at a young age while you were in college, and something that a lot of people can learn from, especially now that millennials get the reputation that they like to quit before the job is done. And I feel like a lot of people do that because they're afraid of discomfort, right? They don't want to take the 1,500 calls. They want to do the marketing work, the marketing thing that they studied for. But the thing is, you don't really realize, but everything that you go through in life can either be a lesson for you or something that pushes you towards a direction that you want to be at.
Yep.
And I feel like both of us, we've experienced that in a way, right? I don't really get to tell this story, but I would always tell my husband that before, when I would host, I'd host maybe a 4-hour show for only 3,000 pesos or 5,000 pesos. And I kept going for it because I wanted people to know that I host and I host well. And I started taking photos and I started posting it on social media because I wanted to build that brand. And I knew that even if I don't earn as much money, I know that it was training me to become the host that I always wanted to be.
Yep.
And so you always have to deal with every situation that you experience as a lesson,
Yeah,
diba?
exactly.
Yeah.
I think that also goes into this idea now that there are a lot of people who don't like the idea of working for free.
That's true.
Which I think if you're still young, if you're fresh from college, that's the perfect time to actually consider it. Especially if you wanted to get into an industry that's highly competitive, or reach out to somebody you want to learn from and say you'll work for free, even just for a few months.
Yeah.
Because having that access to all the experience and the exposure to that industry, parang sometimes that's much better than getting, a small starting salary at a company you don't like,
Yeah.
where you'll be doing grunt work. But if you get, as an intern, like if somebody wants to learn how you do things,
Yeah.
I would say the best way to do it is to work for free as an intern to you. Get to see what you do, how you do things, how you approach your work.
Yeah.
Get to see your full schedule as as an assistant or as an intern. So
Yeah.
after like 6 months, the learnings that they'll get is sobrang. That's more valuable than 6 months worth of basic salary, basically. Diba?
That's true. And also in the future, it's also brand association, right? Like if you say that you worked for this incredible company
Yep.
while you were young, you got that kind of training in, you got to meet the bosses, you got to see how they did the work, what's the business side of it. Even if you didn't get paid, dude, that is insurmountable, right? Experience and
That's
knowledge.
a huge advantage immediately.
Yeah, super. And now, because everyone, I think now it's so competitive. The scale now is incredibly high. It's incredibly heavy to be successful in any field. Kasi kita mo na yung options mo eh.
Yep.
Before, you had to submit your CV, you had to go into the interview, you had to, bosses had to see you and actually meet you and see your profile before they could make decisions for themselves. But now they go and Google you, they see the work that you do, they're like, yeah, I like this guy. Okay na ako dito, di ba? Yeah, so that's really tough. But I mean, that's precisely why we want to work in the businesses and the things that we love. Because at the end of the day, what we always say, it's not the money that you make. It's really the legacy that you leave for your children and for your family in the future, and how you affect the people around you, right?
Yep, exactly.
So do you think that, what's next for Antidote, you think? Now that you've gone through so many evolutions, and now you have Kendrick Loves to Brand, which is the podcast. I feel like it's the digital version also of Antidote Branding, wherein you talk about entrepreneurship, you talk about branding, right? What's next then?
So over the past few years, we've realized that we're really, really good at creating brands from scratch and growing it at the start. So what we want to do over the next few years is really get better at scaling the brands. We have a few brands that we were able to start exporting. Like Lagu, we've sold to over about 15 countries now. Some through distributors, some through resellers, some just purely online resellers. So we want to get better at really scaling it to a bigger degree. So instead of just being good at taking something from 0 to 1, we want to be able to keep growing and take it from 1 to 10 to 20, and then hopefully to 100 to infinity, diba? So we're looking for people, to build a team, those who are good at operations, the day-to-day, the business development side of things. That's really where the focus is for the company, because we know we can always create something new. Like tomorrow, if we want to launch something, we can come up with an idea. Actually, we have a few ideas in the bank. Parang we're sort of just waiting, kasi we can keep creating. Tapos wala naman yung operations to support it. So so that's really where the focus is, I think, for the next few years.
And I'm sure that there's a Kendrick kind of kid listening to the podcast right now. Maybe a 23-year-old who just quit his job, who wants to do something more, who's asking himself, who am I? Asking his girlfriend, ano ba talaga? Ba't ako nandito? Ba't ko ba ginagawa to?
Who am I? Ganyan.
Oo, ganyan. What would be your advice to that kid? What would be your advice to any 23-year-old at that who feels like he has more to offer?
I think if you know what you want to do, ready or not, start. Because you really won't know everything. You won't really be fully prepared. A lot of people think, I'm not yet ready. You really will not be ready enough. Diba? There's this famous quote about entrepreneurship from Reid Hoffman that says, entrepreneurship is like jumping off a cliff and assembling your parachute on the way down. And trust me when I say that even people who have been doing this for a few years, they're still assembling their parachute. I know I am, diba? So, you really won't have all the answers anyway. So don't bother trying to figure out the complete puzzle before you start. Whatever you have right now, it's enough. Start and then just see where it leads.
That's such good advice. It actually spoke to me also because I have business ideas and I keep going, wala pa akong parachute. Kailangan pala you assemble it on the way down. I've learned so much from you, and I'm sure a lot of people have as well. So why don't you invite them to listen to Kendrick Loves to Brand too?
All right. So if you love branding, if you like entrepreneurship, or even just you want to listen to stories of successful people and apply to your own career or your own ventures, I'd like to invite everyone to listen to Kendrick Loves to Brand. We're available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your podcasts.
Yay! Awesome. I hope to have you again on the show.
Of course, anytime. Let me know.
And hopefully that time we'll talk about something more specific, like personal branding or this new business that we're trying to do.
All right.
Let's
do it.
But for now, that's it for this episode of Adulting with Joyce Pring. We hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, please don't forget to like this video or listen to it on all your favorite podcast providers. Adulting with Joyce Pring with Kendrick Loves to Brand. We'll see you guys soon. Paalam.
Thank you.
Don't forget to check out joycepring.com for the show notes and use the hashtag #AdultingWithJoycePring for all your comments, suggestions, and hopefully non-violent reactions. Thanks for listening.